but I'll usually stay right here on the stake.
Right now, more Australians are at risk of losing their homes than at any point in modern history. In fact, experts warn that millions could be forced out in the next few years. And it's not just the unemployed or low-income earners. Even hard-working families, paying their bills on time, are now hanging by a thread. Behind the scenes, a perfect storm of rising costs, skyrocketing debt, and ruthless market forces is brewing. And the scariest part? Most people won't see it coming until it's too late. Today, we'll count down the 10 biggest reasons this crisis is about to explode. Number 10. Rising construction costs. It's hard to believe, but building a home in Australia today can cost 30 to 50% more than it did just a few years ago. The price of timber, steel, and concrete has soared due to global supply chain disruptions, pandemic aftershocks, and the ongoing impact of international conflicts. Builders are facing delays of months, sometimes years, because materials simply aren't arriving on time. For families building their dream home, that means budgets blowing out by tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many are left scrambling to find extra cash or take on more debt just to finish construction. And it's not only new builds. Renovations are becoming a financial nightmare too. Here's the dangerous domino effect. Higher construction costs mean fewer homes being built, which worsens the housing shortage, drives prices up, and puts even more pressure on renters and buyers. In short, what used to be a manageable project is now a financial minefield, pushing more Australians closer to the edge of losing their housing security. Number 9. Population growth, outpacing supply. Australia's population is growing faster than ever, and the housing market simply can't keep up. In the past year alone, net migration has hit record highs, with hundreds of thousands of new residents arriving from overseas. While this is great for cultural diversity and the economy, it's putting massive pressure on an already strained housing system. The problem? We're not building enough homes to match this growth. In many cities, rental vacancy rates have dropped below 1%, meaning for every 100 rental properties, fewer than one is available. Competition is fierce. Families are lining up at inspections, offering above-market rent just to secure a roof over their heads. This imbalance pushes prices higher for both renters and buyers, leaving many Australians completely priced out of their own neighborhoods. For people on the edge financially, one rent increase could mean the difference between stability and homelessness. Unless housing supply catches up quickly, this growing population will continue to squeeze the market, and more Australians will be left with nowhere to go. Number 8. Interest rate hikes. For thousands of Australian homeowners, the past 2 years have been nothing short of a financial earthquake. The Reserve Bank of Australia has lifted interest rates at the fastest pace in decades, turning once manageable mortgage repayments into a crushing monthly burden. Let's put it into perspective. If you took out a $600,000 loan 2 years ago, you might now be paying $800 to $1,200 more every month. And that's before factoring in higher food, fuel, and energy costs. Families who were just getting by are suddenly finding themselves drowning in debt. The scariest part? Mortgage stress doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in. First you cut back on luxuries, then on essentials, and before long, you're missing repayments. And in today's market, missing just a few can put you on a direct path to foreclosure. As rates rise, more Australians will be forced to sell their homes, often at a loss, while investors with cash step in to buy them up. It's a vicious cycle that's tearing through communities and pushing people out of the housing market altogether. Number 7. Wage growth stagnation. While the cost of living has gone through the roof, Australian wages have barely moved. Over the past decade, wage growth has limped along at one of the slowest rates in modern history, nowhere near enough to match skyrocketing housing costs, soaring groceries, and relentless utility bills. For many, pay rises, if they happen at all, are swallowed instantly by inflation. The median income today simply cannot keep pace with what it takes to service a mortgage or pay rent in most major cities. This leaves millions of households living paycheck to paycheck with no financial buffer for emergencies. The danger is clear. When every dollar you earn is already spoken for, even a small unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, or a rent increase can push you into debt. And once debt piles up, catching up becomes almost impossible. Stagnant wages mean more Australians are stuck on a financial treadmill, running faster but getting nowhere, while the housing market speeds ahead without them. For many, it's not about buying a dream home anymore. It's about fighting to keep the one they already have. Number 6. Soaring energy and utility bills. In the past 2 years, Australian households have been hit with energy price shocks that feel almost unreal. Electricity bills have climbed by as much as 20–30% in some states. Gas prices have surged, and even water costs are creeping higher. For families already stretched by mortgage or rent, these spikes are more than an inconvenience. They're the breaking point. When you're paying hundreds more each quarter just to keep the lights on and the house warm, something else in the budget has to give. Often, that something is the money set aside for housing costs. It's a quiet but dangerous squeeze. People don't get evicted because their power bill went up. They get evicted because the power bill left them unable to pay the rent or mortgage. What makes this worse is that energy prices are volatile, meaning another jump could happen without warning. This constant uncertainty forces many into survival mode, choosing between comfort and keeping their home, a choice no family should ever have to make. If you'd like to walk with us through the rest of this story, take a moment to subscribe. It's how we keep traveling together. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Every place has its own housing story. And as we move forward, think about which part of today's journey stayed with you the most, because the next chapter is only moments away. Number 5. Declining Housing Affordability Index. In Australia today, the dream of home ownership is slipping further away than at any point in living memory. The Housing Affordability Index, a measure of how realistic it is for the average person to buy, has fallen to some of its lowest levels on record. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, even with a stable income, the cost of purchasing a modest home can feel almost unreachable. It's not just the purchase price, it's the stamp duty, the rising interest rates, and the ongoing costs of living. For younger Australians, the gap between wages and house prices has grown into a canyon. But this isn't only a problem for first home buyers. As affordability falls, more people are pushed into the rental market, adding pressure and driving rents higher. Those already struggling to pay their mortgage are finding their equity shrinking, making it harder to refinance or sell without loss. The numbers don't just tell a story. They warn of a future where owning a home becomes a privilege for the few, not the foundation for the many. Number 4. Short-term rentals boom Airbnb effect. Across Australia's coasts, tourist towns, and even inner-city suburbs, a quiet shift has been reshaping the housing market. Homes that once sheltered local families are now being turned into short-term rentals, listed on platforms like Airbnb for travelers seeking a weekend escape. For property owners, the numbers make sense. Short stays can bring in far more than a traditional long-term lease. But for communities, the cost is steep. Each home converted to tourist use is one less available for locals, shrinking the rental pool and pushing prices higher. In some regional towns, vacancy rates have plunged so low that essential workers, teachers, nurses, police are forced to live in caravans or commute hours each day. This Airbnb effect doesn't just displace individuals, it erodes the fabric of communities, turning once vibrant neighborhoods into seasonal hotspots that fall silent between bookings. And while councils debate regulations, the trend continues, one more force pulling housing further out of reach for the people who call these places home year-round. Number 3. Natural disasters and climate risk. In recent years, Australia has faced a brutal reminder that nature can change everything overnight. From floods that swallow entire suburbs to bushfires that turn homes to ash in minutes. Extreme weather events are no longer rare. They're becoming part of the rhythm of life. For those living in high-risk areas, the danger isn't only the disaster itself. Insurance premiums in some flood and fire zones have jumped by over 28%, making them unaffordable for many households. Without coverage, a single event can wipe out a lifetime's investment. And for some properties, insurers are walking away altogether, leaving owners with no protection at all. The consequences ripple far beyond the disaster zone. Banks may refuse loans for uninsurable homes, property values fall, and entire communities can find themselves stranded in economic no man's land. Here, the housing crisis isn't driven by market forces or migration. It's the simple, devastating reality that the ground beneath us is changing, and not everyone will have the means to rebuild when nature strikes again. Number 2. Property investor dominance. Found in Australia's housing market, the balance of power has shifted. Increasingly, it's not families buying their first home. It's property investors buying their second, third, or 10th. Armed with equity from existing properties, and aided by generous tax benefits, like negative gearing and capital gains discounts, these buyers can outbid almost anyone. For first-home buyers, competing with this level of financial firepower is like bringing a butter knife to a sword fight. The result? Prices climb, supply tightens, and everyday Australians are left chasing homes they'll never secure. But the impact doesn't stop there. Investor-owned properties often end up in the rental market, where rising rents feed back into the affordability crisis. And when the market cools, investors can simply hold their assets, while struggling homeowners are forced to sell, often at a loss. This quiet dominance shapes entire suburbs, changing who gets to live where and who gets pushed out. It's a system that rewards those who already have, while leaving those starting out further behind with every auction hammer that falls. Number 1. The debt trap. Australia now holds one of the highest household debt ratios in the world. Debt levels that, compared to income, surpass even the United States and the UK. For many families, mortgages have grown so large that a single setback, a job loss, an illness, or another interest rate hike can tip them into financial freefall. The trap is subtle at first. People stretch their budgets to buy, believing future income will catch up. But as living costs rise and wages stall, the gap between what's owed and what's affordable widens. Each month becomes a battle to stay afloat. When repayments fall behind, banks move quickly. Homes are repossessed, often sold at prices below what's owed, leaving families without a house and still in debt. The emotional toll is as heavy as the financial one: uprooted lives, broken plans, and communities fractured. This is the final, most dangerous link in the chain. A housing market built on debt so fragile, it only takes a small shock to set off a wave of foreclosures, turning today's risk into tomorrow's reality. When you lay it all out, rising costs, stagnant wages, shrinking supply, and a debt burden heavier than ever before, it's not just numbers on a chart, it's people, families, neighbors. It's the couple who spent decades building a life, now facing the loss of the home where they raised their children. It's the young family packing boxes, not for a fresh start, but because they have no choice. Making videos like this isn't easy. It means hours of research, digging into painful truths, and trying to give a voice to stories that often go unheard. If you believe these stories matter, if you believe more Australians should see them, please subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps this work alive and ensures we can keep shining a light where it's needed most. And if you can, share where you're watching from in the comments below, because every part of Australia has its own chapter in this unfolding story, and together we can tell it.